John, there were doubts that this day would ever come, but it seems quite clear that Elon Musk will be serving shitbird rotisserie for Thanksgiving. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's exciting. What an exciting development this is.
I agree.
Yeah,
now, Chris is with us, John, in the comments asking if the John E. Hoover channel has received a strike. I don't think so. We should be streaming live on the John E. Hoover channel right now, simulcasting there. I think people know that, you and I are doing our sponsor exclusive show every Friday. As a matter of fact, a lot of people got to enjoy our antics, shenanigans, what have you. And thank you, John. You were a very important part of that road trip. I don't know if people realize, but you were the inspiration for that road trip. You said, hey, Jason, 5th anniversary of Vegas, we got to do something special. And then everybody saw. We went to Lake Mead. We went to the Meteor. It was really a great series of shows. And I had a really good time hanging out, camping, barbecuing steaks. Thank you, John, for that and for being such an important part of the road trip. People are going to be able to watch today's sponsor exclusive segment starting at 7:30 Eastern on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and Subscribestar and Patreon/CrowdsourceTheTruth. And tonight is an excellent night for people to become sponsors because I have a huge credit card bill from all the gas and hotels, and it would be super good time to, yes, right. And the John E. Hoover channel, it's important that people understand the different channels that we simulcast on, John, and there are a lot, and so I know it's confusing, but as far as YouTube channels go, the John Cullen Investigates channel, that is a channel created and controlled by me specifically for simulcasting broadcasts with John Cullen. People should be subscribing to the John E. Hoover YouTube channel. That is John's channel. We are simulcasting on there right now, and almost all of our shows are simulcast on here, but you should really subscribe because John also has unique content that he posts here, and it's a great way to stay in touch and stay on top of all the great stories that John is breaking. What do we want to cover tonight, John?
Well, we've got the development with Elon Musk acquiring Twitter, and then the goings-on that came of that, and that's sort of the lead story. We're going to talk about that, but it's interesting. Sometimes, they say when it rains, it pours. So there's a lot of big stories in the news, and we're going to take a closer look at this when we go to our patron-only show. And again, we're very grateful for our patrons for making trips like this possible. Without the people who support our work, we couldn't do this kind of stuff, so very, very grateful to you guys who support us. So thank you. So what we're going to do when we go patron only is a bit of a deep dive into some of the personalities in leadership at Twitter. And in particular, we're going to take a closer look at Vijaya Gadde and some of the interviews that she did earlier on. So when we go patron only, we're going to take a look at a couple of the Joe Rogan clips where she's talking with Joe Rogan, with Tim Pool, and with the chief Twit from before,
Dorsey.
Jack. Yeah, Dorsey. So they're all together in a room, the four of them. And it's interesting because these videos got millions and millions of views on YouTube here. So, we're going to take a closer look at that when we go patron only, critique that, look at, what was sort of their position years ago when confronted by Joe Rogan and Tim Pool on these issues. And then we'll look at how has Elon dealt with that. And now, in fact, I was able to get my hands on some exclusive video. I don't know if you were able to download, but I sent you an exclusive video. And this is footage that not many people have seen. This is actual footage from today where they walked, I don't know if the audience is aware of this, but Parag Agrawal was walked out of the building. And if you want, you can run this footage and share this with the audience.
Surely
and this is where they walked Parag out of the building. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but this is exclusive. I've got a friend who knows Elon and was able to get us this. So you want to run this?
Is there sound there?
No.
This
is security
right. That's
footage
from the China He's like, hey, bro.
No. This is at Twitter. This is at Twitter today,
right.
and this is so this was Elon
not the
had
Politburo.
Parag removed from the building today, and we were able to get that exclusive
Not
footage.
bad.
So that was
Not
very
bad.
exciting. It was very exciting. All right, so we're going to talk about that in depth when we go Patreon only. Yeah.
What about Paul Pelosi getting brained with a hammer?
Well, we're going to talk about, that's what I'm saying. There's a whole bunch of stuff in the news. We can't just talk about Twitter. We're going to talk about Paul Pelosi. They broke into the house. We're going to talk about all that, a whole bunch of stuff. But let's start with the top story. So let's go to the deck. We've got a couple slides that we can share with our YouTube audience before we go Patreon only. And we go Patreon only, we're going to take a look at a couple of these clips because we can't really do that here on YouTube. It takes too much time. So in the deck, the first slide is just sort of a review. If you guys aren't on Twitter, I had a little back and forth this past week with Frank Serpico. And having grown up in New York and having gone to high school in the Bronx, Frank Serpico was a legend. And
we got to tell people because not everybody knows who he is. They made a movie about him with Al Pacino.
Exactly.
And he got shot in the face.
And so Frank Serpico sort of broke this ring of corruption that was within the New York Police Department. And I went to high school in the Bronx. And again, he was a legend. And the fact that he follows me on Twitter is amazing. So we got into a little back and forth this past week about the Vegas shooting. And I was a little surprised at some of his reactions, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. But again, this is the kind of stuff that happens on Twitter, is you're able to connect with people like Frank Serpico.
That is amazing.
So he's the fact that not only that he's following me, but that he's engaging and we're talking about the Vegas shooting and this and that. So that's the kind of stuff happening on Twitter. I guess I picked up another 45 followers this week on Twitter. And if you guys aren't yet on Twitter, I'd encourage you just to check it out now, because now Elon Musk is taking Twitter private. And this is huge, right? So taking a company private is a big deal. And I love that. So,
He spoke about doing that with Tesla when he did the 420. He wanted to see, the thing that's interesting about this is that traditional conservative stock people look at this and say this is idiotic. Like Charles doesn't even like talking about this because the valuation of Twitter is so far away from its, fundamentals as far as like the price per earning and all this. But I don't think that Elon Musk is a traditional investor. I don't even think he's a traditional thinker in anything that he does at all. And I think people misconstrue what I am saying to be some kind of Elon Musk fanboy thing. Notice here, the stock was not trading today because it's been bought by Elon Musk and taken private. Anybody who got in there at 53.70 has an opportunity to make 50 cents times however many thousands of shares you have. But I think that Twitter was terrible the way that it was before. And here we've got someone with the wherewithal, the finances to purchase the thing, who says he's doing this because he wants to bring back freedom of speech to the platform. And I don't have any reason to believe he's lying about that. So let's take that at face value until it can be proven otherwise. That's my position.
Exactly. Let's go to the first slide in the deck. The first slide in the deck, Associated Press is reporting that Elon Musk is in control of Twitter and has in fact ousted top executives. So although we joked about it with a little video clip, Parag Agrawal is out and Vijaya Gandhi is out.
Pro tip, do not name your female daughter Vagina.
Vijaya.
Or that.
Well, I think Vijaya in India is like it means something different than what
women's genitals.
Yes, very, very different. Yes, very different.
I think
so. So Vijaya Gandhi is out. We're going to take a closer look. I think she was making $16 million a year.
I heard 17.
17
like
million
a
year. Seems like a lot. I don't know. 17 million a year. It's hard for me to imagine trying to get by on, a mere 20,000 a week, which is $1 million a year. So, when you say, no, 20,000 a week isn't going to cut it, I'm going to need about 17 times that.
What did this person do that was worth $17 million a year? The company
legal
never made
officer?
money. Right, but she's not bringing in $17 million worth of revenue on the basis of kicking people off.
No, but is she preventing $17 million a year in litigation?
I don't think so, because they've got CDA 230. Basically, nobody can sue them. The only person to come close to a successful lawsuit against really any social media company was our buddy, what's his name, Alex Berenson. And the thing that was interesting there is that he got them on a promissory estoppel issue that is not covered by CDA 230 because somebody at Twitter had said to him in an email affirmatively that these tweets are okay and your account is not in danger. And then without further communication, they knocked him off. They made a representation to him that then they broke. So it's essentially a breach of contract. And the judge said, you can go forward on this. But Berenson just used it in a settlement to get himself back on Twitter, which I thought was a mistake. I think he would have gone further if he had started suing Twitter, because then he could have settled with Elon Musk right now, gotten back on Twitter anyway, done a lot for helping people who want to sue big tech, but it didn't happen.
All right. Well, the good news is Elon has changed his handle on Twitter, and he is now Chief Twit. And those are his words, right? So he changed it to Chief Twit. So you gotta love the guy. Yeah, you gotta love him. So
he is funny.
So if you're not on Twitter and you weren't on Twitter for certain reasons, well, now Twitter's the electric car company that launches rockets, and now they have Twitter. And I'm excited for him to bring in the rocket guys. Right?
They did already. They said engineers, software engineers from Tesla. Oh, well, not SpaceX, but, obviously Tesla's got tremendously powerful software in it, and it's way more complicated than Twitter. So his engineers went in there, and my understanding is that there's going to be a big meeting over this weekend. See, let's just get in for a moment, John, if we could. I don't mean to tug you all around in different ways, but see, along the lines of Elon Musk not being a traditional investor and this being nowhere near a traditional corporate takeover, I think that there are many other shoes that are going to drop. For instance, I would not be surprised if we see some criminal prosecution against some of these fired Twitter executives. Bernardine thinks he's just another dangerous billionaire. That might be right.
To me, he seems to have altruistic intentions.
I agree.
We will see how it plays out. But again, at face value, my gut tells me he has altruistic intentions, and he's using his wealth to try and shift a very strong bias. It's like he's spending $45 billion. I guess it's about a quarter of his wealth to...
Well, but it's not all his, though. He got investors, your buddy Larry...
but he owes the money, right? He's got to pay Larry back $1 billion, right? So what Larry...
It's a corporation or something. I mean, it's not like he's...
Right. By the way, you mentioned taking Tesla private. Guess who said to Elon, when you're ready to take Tesla private, you call me.
Probably Larry Ellison.
MBS.
Oh, God. Wow. Did you see
that's a right of first refusal that you shouldn't really screw with, right? When he says, when you're ready, you call me, right? Capiche, right? You better call MBS. If he finds out you did the deal with Carl Icahn, he's not going to be very happy, right?
Did you hear this other piece of information that there was a Russian, some sort of minister of defense or something like that, who was speaking at the UN, who said that, here's Reuters saying Russia's anti-satellite threat tests laws of war in space. I think the law is if you can blow something up in space, you win. And Russia basically said, which I can't disagree with this, even if you hate Russia, they're saying, hey, if you want to weaponize civilian infrastructure in space, it becomes a de facto target in the war. And I mean, I think it was a huge mistake for Elon Musk to provide Starlink internet to Ukraine, taking sides like that, particularly since we've seen now in his subsequent tweets He doesn't seem to have a firm grip on exactly what is going on there. He just sent that technology. He honestly, Russia could murder him and have a legitimate claim that he's a participant in the war and we wanted to stop what he was doing.
I couldn't believe that Randy Weingarten flew over there. The head of the teachers union flew to the Ukraine. I keep calling it the Ukraine. Flew to Ukraine. And all these other, the Nancy Pelosi flew there in one of her pantsuit outfits.
Nancy Pelosi, that's her new name.
In a pantsuit. And it's like, it's a war zone. And these people are flying in and out. Ben Stiller? What the hell is Ben Stiller going to Ukraine
He should have shot a Meet the Parents episode in Ukraine.
It's
that would have been funny.
War zone. Aren't you guys afraid of getting blown up? Like
Obviously
you're
not.
A huge name. It makes no sense. So anyway,
they told the Azov to stand down when Nancy was there.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a second. So hang on one sec. But I want to show the audience. We're talking about Elon Musk before we jump ahead to Ukraine. Elon Musk yesterday launched a Falcon 9, and this was a photo that somebody took from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So if anybody in LA saw something that looked like this in the sky and thought it was a UFO or something last night, no, that was Elon sending.
This has been happening for a while. When I went to see Quinn Michaels in the hospital in New Mexico, Joe Napoli sent me a photo like this, and that was, what is this, But what we've learned since then is that, and I think I mentioned this to you either in Vegas or in the last show, but it's that SpaceX rockets use cryogenic liquid oxygen and rocket-grade kerosene as propellants. And they do that because the solid rocket fuel, Elon Musk had some explanation as to why they chose to do that, but I believe it also has to do with in situ elements on Mars that can be combined somehow to make this fuel or combined with this fuel to make water or whatever. So it looks much different than a rocket launch with solid rocket fuel.
And I remember he was commenting a couple weeks back when NASA was having difficulty.
Yes.
And he was commenting about how NASA's propellant, it's just like it's a mess made to happen, and it's just it's not state of the art anymore. So it's very interesting, and again, that's why we're going to spend more time digging into this acquisition when we go patron only. But before we go patron only, I want a couple more slides with the YouTube audience just to catch everybody up on some of the stories that maybe we were ahead of.
But I first need you to admit that we've never had a more Tony Stark-like real person. I mean, here's this guy in the news advising NASA as to what the hell they don't know about. I don't know.
Exactly.
That's weird.
And who'd ever imagined that it would be an African American, right?
Yeah.
So,
did you see
South
that
African,
fake
South African,
that fake
American.
Trump letter
South African.
that fooled the news?
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yes. Yeah.
It just shows how
it's
stupid
all
the
in my
news
deck.
is.
It's in my deck.
Right.
And that's the next story. Right-wing pundits and Russian state media were duped by a fake Trump press release hailing his imminent return to Twitter. So, and a whole bunch of people jumped on this and said, and it's not true. So
I could tell it was fake right away for a couple of reasons. By the way, even if this is important for us to talk about because Trump is a unique figure in that if he said anything like this, he would have put it on Truth Social. And anybody can go to truthsocial.com/realdonaldtrump and look at what he's saying. Before I would ever run around screaming about anything, I would check that. And it's amazing to me and quite telling about how incompetent journalists are to not even check Trump's Truth Social. So did he actually put that out?
It's remarkable. That's what we do here. Speaking of which, right? Last week we showed the audience how Johns Hopkins and the World Health Organization don't agree. Then nobody really cares about that. So we'll just skip ahead. They continue to disagree about how many people were dead in different places. But I found this fascinating. About 2 years ago, we had our friends from UK Cullen came on the show, Alex Thompson and David Scott. And in that show, the term twindemic came up, and we were talking about some reporting coming from Daily Mail or Sun UK or something about a twindemic. And now, in the news today, a tridemic.
When will we have an LGBTQ plus RNA demic?
before the end of the year. Before
Yeah.
the end of the year, we will have a rainbow of viruses. An entire, right? Imagine that. A rainbow of viruses. Every color. Isn't that fabulous? So we've got a tridemic now. And the pharmacies are caught off guard. Well, isn't that interesting? If you go to the next slide, they've got a different term for it. This is a tripledemic coming from Mail Online. They're calling it, instead of a tridemic, a tripledemic. Which one rolls off the tongue better? Which one are you more comfortable with, Jason?
This sounds more British.
The tripledemic?
Tripledemic? It's like a quidemic.
Tridemic sounds like we had some marketing types, right? Sounds like we had some marketing, some MBAs in the
Can we focus group this? Maybe?
What's that?
Focus group this, send it to marketing.
Exactly. How does tridemic work with the room?
Quademic,
right?
septidemic.
Yeah. I think, well, the quademic is where you get your quadvalence. So if you got a tripledemic, you can go with a trivalent vaccine.
Oh,
that's an opportunity, Jason.
Sounds like science. I'll follow it.
That is science. That is science. So when you have a tridemic, right, we want to look at a trivalent vaccine that solves all your problems in one shot. Now, Moderna said, since Moderna figured out how to make the first one in 2 hours, they said we should be able to do this in 2 hours times 3. So it should take us about 6 hours, and we'll have this thing wrapped up, give or take. We could be wrong. Now, the other thing that nobody seems to give a damn about right now is this polio outbreak in New York that I've been talking about for months. I've been talking about the polio in New York, and that's on the next slide. So the next slide, we got polio. So we got a tridemic, we got a tripledemic, we got polio, we got the monkeypox,
But how
other than that, Jason, how's everything going? Other than that, how's everything going?
How did he get polio?
How do you get polio?
Sewage. How did he get it? Was he swimming in sewage?
I don't know. We'll have to read the article. So this is from News 4 New York. The CDC is issuing a warning as new data shows the scope of the polio spread in the New York City area. And if you remember, a lot of this was vaccine-induced polio, right? So they had this side effect of the polio vaccine. Oh, yeah. Well, that was the early reporting. And then they said, well, we've got this new vaccine that treats the vaccine-induced polio.
What about vaccine-induced vaccine treatment polio?
That's what I tweeted and said, if that's what happens, that's going to be pretty embarrassing, right? So we don't want that to happen. So hopefully these new vaccines also don't cause vaccine-induced polio. Otherwise, we're just going around and around and around. And that's, nobody's making money in that situation, right?
John, we're almost out of time, and we've got to make our transition here over to the sponsor-exclusive segment on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and Subscribestar and Patreon/crowdsourcethetruth. Seventh Son is saying, didn't someone just hit an asteroid the size of a pyramid with a satellite the size of a refrigerator? Both of those things could be arbitrary sizes. And we did talk about that on our visit to the meteor crater. I think if people have not seen that, right now is an excellent time to become a sponsor, because not only will you be able to hear the conversation that John and I are about to have on Patreon and Subscribestar, I Am John Cullen, and Crowdsource the Truth. I have some things I want to share with you about observations I've made about this Paul Pelosi attack. And I do not believe that story for 1 second. I think people are going to be very intrigued to hear my insights in this, but we've got a break right now. We'll be back in less than 5 minutes. Join us on Patreon and Subscribestar and watch those episodes on from the road trip. We went to the meteor crater, Lake Mead, Las Vegas Boulevard, a lot of important stuff. So join us in 5 minutes and watch that after. Thanks for watching, everybody.